Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. He's been on the show a couple of times. I've gotten some great positive feedback. People like the topic, and they think it's really timely. Got Paul Mush on, and he is a expert at sales and really believes so much in his ability to sell that he works completely on a commission basis in creating sales teams, which I think is a brilliant idea, also kind of a risky concept. But tell us a little bit of, simply because, people can get you to start the team and then they could weird out on you. My gut tells me, that most people just are relieved to have a sales professional handle that for them. Tell us a little bit about your story before we get started on the topic, Paul.
Sure, Kevin. Yeah, and thanks for having me on this morning. So, well, like a lot of people, I fell into sales. It was an accident. I don't know anybody personally that's ever set out in their career to be a salesperson. One thing leads to another. I started out as an engineer, but so I got a position initially selling automotive test equipment because I like cars, and one thing led to another. I was really good at it, and I found a company that needed a sales team, and I kind of invited myself into a startup and built a team, and then the word got around, and I just got invited to position after position to build sales teams, and I've been doing this since 1987. So there you go.
So let me ask you, you probably it sounds like you almost found yourself a consultant to many, even though you may not have even planned on doing that. You all of a sudden noticed you had several clients and you had several sales teams. Is that kind of how it evolved?
Well, like I like to tell people, I said I used to work for a living, now I don't. I'm doing sales.
I don't know. That could be a tough living. Tell me what you love about selling.
Well, I enjoy working with business owners. I do primarily startup companies, and I really respect entrepreneurs. I mean, I grew up, my father was an entrepreneur, and I don't think there's only like one person in my entire family that has a real W-2 job, but she's a teacher. She teaches music, which I give her some slack. That's my sister. But I like small business owners. I mean, they're out there taking the risks, and a lot of times they just don't have the time or the background to handle the sales part of it, so I kind of like just join their management team and help them along.
Well, are you from Michigan originally, by the way?
I am from Detroit.
Yeah, I grew up in Ferndale, by the way.
Oh, I didn't even know that, Kevin.
Yeah, I just noticed that you went to Oakland Community College. Looks like where you began your academic career, eventually going to Colorado to finish your bachelor's in engineering. Yeah, I grew up in Ferndale, Michigan, for 13 years. And so, and my brothers went to Oakland Community College, and so, yeah, we probably a very similar neck of the woods there.
Well, I tell a lot of people, I go, they might not realize this, but I-94 doesn't stop when you hit Illinois. It just keeps going, so I kept going.
There you go. Yeah, a lot of people seem to intermingle between Illinois and Michigan, but you can keep going, no question about it.
I love Detroit, I'll tell you. I like Detroit, and there's a lot of good things happening back in Detroit right now. I'll just mention that. I still have a lot of family there, so it's a great city, and that's another instance of entrepreneurship. I mean, if you're waiting for the automotive companies to give you a job, I think they finally figured out the job isn't coming.
Yep.
So they're looking around, and they're making their lives where they are, and so I respect that.
Yeah, it's certainly going through a renaissance, no question about it. And the bankruptcy actually is proving to be a good thing for it. Talk a little bit about, where people come to you from, in terms of where they are in their business, their company. Tell me kind of where a company is at when they hire you.
Well, most of the time, people who call me got to a certain point where self-employment ends. They just cannot continue on. The business is not going to grow when they try to do everything themselves. So they look around, they say, even if I know how to sell, I don't have time for it. So I would say 3 out of 4 don't know how to sell, and they need to bring someone in, and maybe one does with no time. And the other ones are just startups, and they're just trying to a lot of times the startups are done by, people with business backgrounds or technical backgrounds. And, it's like say when I was younger, I played guitar, but I wasn't all that great at it. I looked around and said, well, maybe I'll play bass. And once I learned bass, I got invited to every band there was back in the garage band era because everybody needed a bass player.
Right.
And not everybody's going to be up front and center. So, everybody needs sales. And so they invite me in.
Yeah.
It's not good for everybody.
base is not the sexiest position, but it's certainly one of the most needful ones, mainly because it's not the sexiest position. And so, yeah, absolutely. Tell me about how many sales teams do you usually operate at one time?
Well, I have as you can imagine, you can only do so many, but I have, a lot of efficiencies. I can run multiple teams, and it all depends on the complexity of the project. I've had as many as 10, and I can handle even more than that if they're pretty small projects, or I've had instances where I've had one project pretty much tie me up, depending on the scale. But it all depends what they need. And once you get the initial recruiting and setup part done, then it becomes more just to maintain that momentum. So then it frees you up to take on another project.
So absolutely, it makes perfect sense to me. What would you say is the where you are today? How many companies are you working with today?
Well, it varies. Like I said, it's a moving target. It all depends on the project. Some projects are long term, some terms are short. So that's a varying moving target, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm assuming that there's probably a diversity of industries as well, or is there certain types that you like to gravitate towards?
Well, I'm not really married to any one industry. I mean, I have my specialty. My main background is with Internet projects, but I'll work on any viable project, and the determining factor really is that can I sell it to a rep? And the rep wants to know, is this a real job? Is the product have demand? Are they going to help them sell? And there's a lot of competition for reps. And if you can't sell it to the rep, you don't have a team. So that's really what I'm looking at. I'm looking at from the rep's point of view.
And what I think is extraordinary is obviously there has to be a cost involved. You got to have people involved, financially in order to make it work. But it's a remarkably modest investment. Talk about how that works.
Well, everybody's on commission. I don't do salary teams. I mean, in my entire career, I only did one salary team because that was a test. It was an A/B test. One commission team, external, one internal. Salary, and by the way, that test worked out with an outside commission team, outsold the inside team. Mm-hmm. So they got rid of the inside team. So there's always commission. So since the reps are taking the risk, it's up to the company owner to sell them, not the other way around. If the rep wants a salary job, they have to sell the company. So you're looking at basically an entrepreneur. A commission sales rep is a business. You cannot look at that as an employee. That's the first thing. They are entrepreneurs. They are selling their talents and their time, and they want the best bid they can get. That's why if you want to hold on to them, you better deliver. You better have a good product and give them a good commission rate. The only thing I get is I recover some fees up front just to cover some recruiting costs, and that's it. And only that because I'm offering a month-to-month service.
Yep.
Monthly term. I don't demand a 5-year term. So.
And that's all predicated on how big the project is, what the project entails. I mean, you've got a range that I'm familiar with, and I suggest the listener become familiar with it. But I think it's a phenomenal idea, and I wish there were more companies out there that were doing it. Paul, your website before I let you go.
Salesbounce.com.
Salesbounce.com. My listeners asked for more information. We did it. We're going to probably get you on in the future to talk some more to us, Paul. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
When we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, you're listening to The Price of Business.